Kiss of the Dragon, directed by Chris Nahon, is a fun, over-the-top action romp that is also surprisingly poignant. Jet Li stars as Li Juan, a Chinese government agent who travels to Paris to investigate an international heroin smuggler. Shortly after arriving, Liu goes on the run after Jean-Pierre Richard, Checky Cario, a corrupt French inspector, frames him for murder. Liu also meets Jessica, Bridget Fonda, a woman who was forced into prostitution after Richard took her daughter captive. Holy shit! Jessica is Dorothy from Blue Velvet. Moving on. The film follows Liu as he attempts to clear his name and rescue Jessica's daughter. First of all, Checky Cario plays an amazing villain. In a role reminiscent of Detective Stansfield from The Professional, Richard is sadistic and intense, and casts the impression that he loves how evil he is. Cario throws himself into this energetic performance, and the cold, frenzied glint in his eye shows how dedicated he is. Liu is a simple but decent character. He is stoic and introverted, but also kind and honorable, and has room for development in the form of Jessica bringing him out of his shell. I like how Jessica isn't a cliched love interest. She and Liu simply bond as friends, and this is enough for us to be interested in their relationship. Jessica is sweet-natured and vulnerable, but still has a strong will, and a few powerful scenes establish how miserable her life is without bogging the movie down. The scenes of Jessica out in the grimy streets are degrading and hard to watch, and one shocking scene shows that Richard had promised to let Jessica and her daughter go, but instead injects her with heroin against her will to force her into continued dependency. This last scene highlights how despicable Richard is, and you find yourself urging Liu to take him down and save Jessica. As such, Kiss of the Dragon is quite engrossing. The martial arts action is exciting and well choreographed, and takes place in some unconventional set pieces, such as an orphanage and a laundry room. The dojo fight and the battle with the twins are some of the film's highlights. The main gimmick in some of these scenes is Liu's use of acupuncture to incapacitate his opponents, which is a clever little feature. My only problem with the action scenes would be that the opponents can be very clumsy, so some of the early fights look too easy for Li. By the way, Liu's skill in acupuncture leads to one of the coolest deaths I've seen in a long time. Liu darts behind Richard and sticks a needle in the back of his neck, in a move called the Kiss of the Dragon. This stimulates all of Richard's blood to travel to his head and cause a cataclysmic aneurysm. That's awesome! I have a few small problems with the film. It takes a while for us to find out who Liu is and why he is in Paris, so the opening lacks context. I find it hard to believe that Richard and his team could get away with their actions, especially since they're demolishing hotels and blowing up buildings. Richard is the leader of police in his area, but shouldn't he be reprimanded by higher chains of command? Also, for a film set in Paris, it doesn't feel very French. We're shown very little French culture or even French accents, and the weird choice of American hip-hop and electronic music for the soundtrack doesn't help. Like Venice in The Tourist, the Parisian setting of Kiss of the Dragon doesn't feel very authentic. However, these are relatively minor faults. Kiss of the Dragon is not a great movie, but it's serious, engaging, and hard-hitting when it didn't need to be. Kiss of the Dragon earns 3.5 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching. Cheers.